The meat and nut breakfast is designed to increase dopamine and acetylcholine in the brain so you're more awake for the rest of the day. And we know also from research that the makeup of your first bite in the morning sets up neurotransmitters for the whole day. So that's why it's important to have meat and nut breakfast. When it comes to your carbs, I like to use a Paleolithic approach. In other words, did the caveman have access to those carbs? So yes, you can get carbs from veggies, but also you can have it from fruit. But depending on how lean or how fat you are, the amount of fruit you can eat can vary from 1 piece to 6 pieces a day. So if you're lean and you train multiple times a day, 6 pieces of fruit is not an issue. But if you're a couch potato, 1 piece of fruit a day should be plenty. Fish oil in high dosages, the reason why I came up with that is based on anthropological studies on our ancestors' diet. And typically, our genome evolved on 300 to 400 grams of omega-3 a day. A week. And now if people get 3 a week, that's a miracle. So I think people's mind were not used to getting to 3 to 400, so I made an happy medium of 30 to 45 grams a day. But even at that dose, which is not excessive, we see fantastic results. Initially, when I suggested that, in the scientific literature, they only talked about 7 grams a day. And last year in July, a Kenyan study confirmed what I was saying, that results in body composition were greater when the dosage of fish oil equaled 55 to 60 grams a day. Carbs are needed in post-workout shakes if you're lean enough. In other words, you need to deserve your carbohydrates. The value I like to have is in males, sub 10% body fat, and in females, sub 16. If they have body fat values lower than that, then it warrants the use of carbohydrates. It's actually going to get more anabolic faster. If they are too fat, then I use glycine to help out with the anabolic response, added, of course, to the whey protein. Okay, well, it is possible, but it's affected mainly by genetics. There's a correlation between hypertrophy gains and strength gains, but there's no correlation between hypertrophy and strength. In other words, if your arms is this size, and I increase it to this size, your strength will have gone up. But if I go randomly in the street and I take a guy with this arm versus a guy with this arm, and they're untrained, there's no way to predict who's the strongest, because there's such a thing as neurological efficiency. Therefore, it's possible to have a guy with a smaller arm who can do 200 kilo bench press versus a guy with an arm like this who does 100 kilo bench press. So one thing we do know for sure is that size increases lead to strength increases, but there's no correlation between hypertrophy and strength. All right, there are 2 machines that carry over athletic performance: the reverse hyper and the leg curl machines. Actually, leg curls is the only machine I use. Now, some of my colleagues criticize me for that, but since they have never trained a world record holder or a Olympic champion, I don't give much faith to what they say. What's essential, okay, I'll just say bye and then, okay guys, see you later. So I use machines only when I use leg curls, and the reason is that hamstrings are knee flexors and hip extensors. And some people will say, well, in sport, you only use them as hip extensors. I don't agree with that. For example, in sprinting, to initiate at the hip, there is some extension, but if you really look at the mechanics, the knee flexion is there, okay? So if you have a properly designed leg curl machine, it's a warranted exercise. Well, your vitamin D intake should be dictated first by blood work. So you got to follow within the norms, which are well explained on my website. And then if you live in an area like Finland where there's sunlight July 17th between 9 a.m. and 9:18 a.m., then you will need more vitamin D3. There's a lot of evidence that vitamin D3 is linked to all causes of mortality. Therefore, D3 is essential. From experience and clinical data, people tend to do better with 2 high bolus dosage a week. So in other words, 2 times 35,000 international units leads to faster results than 7 times 10,000 international units. So we don't know why, but it's just one of these things it is. And then typically with somebody with abysmal levels of vitamin D3, it takes about 12 to 16 weeks to get to that level, and then we can easily maintain with only 2,000 international units per day. Stomach acid levels, in my opinion, are critical for health. The problem is that we used to make stomach acid, and one of the things that stress does to your human body is to reduce stomach acid levels. Now, if you don't have enough stomach acid, you can't digest proteins properly. You can't absorb a host of minerals from calcium, iron, okay? And you cannot cleave vitamin B12 and vitamin B9 from the foodstuffs you eat. So if you look at, for example, just at Alzheimer's, if you don't have enough B9 and B12 going to your tissues, your likelihood of contracting Alzheimer's goes up 617%, which is significant. Therefore, you need enough stomach acid to make the best out of your food. Okay, CrossFit is a system with a good intent. So there are some things that they do that are good. They try to use exercise that recruit as many muscle units as possible. The workouts are hard. They try to make it more fun. There's a group component to it. That's the good part. The bad news is that there's too many people who have a concept of what CrossFit is, and they don't follow physiological adaptation laws. For example, there's no periodization allowed in the dogma of CrossFit. And any successful athlete around the world follows periodization. It's been around for 70 years. Number 2 is that they're not very well educated on biomechanics of simple exercises. So what you tend to see is people doing exercises that are result-inducing if they know how to do them properly, but they're not doing them properly, therefore they get a lot of orthopedic issues. That's another problem. The rule of thumb is that most people will have great results for 12 weeks, and that's when the drop-off hits CrossFit because they're not seeing any changes. But the reason why they see not any changes, it's actually because they change the workouts too often. We have a saying in sport, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.